Kenyan Show. On today's segment, we'll be discussing some of the best historical sites to visit in Kenya, which also happen to be UNESCO World Heritage Centers. The Gedi Ruins. They are located along the Kenyan coast in Malindi County. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Center. For those who don't know what that means, it is a designated place on earth that is of outstanding universal value to humanity. Gedi simply means flourishing city. In the local Gala people, it means precious. It was thought to have flourished in the mid-15th century. This beautiful place back at the time hosted a number of things, including the Sultan's palaces, sunken gardens, and a fabulous section of the Grand Merchants' houses. The Gedi traces its origin in the 13th to the 17th century when it was apparently abandoned. This ancient town was estimated to support 2,500 inhabitants, which is a pretty big number back then. You could easily say that Gedi was the equivalent of a high-end estate of the medieval times. Egerton Castle. It is located in Nakuru County. Unlike the Gedi ruins, it is not a UNESCO World Heritage Center, but just a normal tourist attraction site. The castle was built by Lord Maurice Egerton in order to impress his fiancée, who claimed his house was too small. But after building it for almost 14 years, she still rejected him, maybe due to the fact that Lord Egerton was 4 feet tall. Currently, the castle has no owner, but is managed by Egerton University. The castle has 52 rooms, including a wine cellar. Of course, there are other castles in Kenya, like the Tafari Castle, but it's just a hotel. Primarily, there are 4 types of castle designs: the concentric castle, the stone keep castle, the shell keep castle, and the moat and bailey castle. We'll leave it up to you to discover which type of castle is Lord Egerton's castle. Old Town, Mombasa. This fabulous place is another UNESCO World Heritage Center. It is located on the southeast side of Mombasa Island and covers an area of 72 hectares. Its origins can be traced to the 900 AD. The buildings there have a Portuguese, Swahili, and modern Islamic architecture. The most amazing thing in Old Town is how the old buildings have retained their beauty despite modern architecture taking over, and some adapt the old designs. This is a truly amazing place to visit during the holidays if you're ever wondering where to go. The colorful buildings, the wonderful climate, and it's just next to white sandy beaches. Lamu Old Town. It is another UNESCO World Heritage Center. This beautiful historic place is the oldest and best preserved Swahili settlement in East Africa, retaining its traditional functions. Built in coral stone and mangrove timber, the town is characterized by the simplicity of structural forms, and it still has the modern Islamic and Persian architectural style. It covers an area of only 16 hectares, making it much smaller than the Mombasa Old Town. Unlike other old towns that have been abandoned, Lamu has been continuously inhabited for over 700 years. Fort Jesus. Within Old Town still is another iconic structure known as Fort Jesus. It is also another UNESCO World Heritage Center. Kenya is just full of them, and that kind of reputation, it explains why so many tourists visit our country every year. The fort was built by the Portuguese in the year 1593 to 1596, and it's still standing. Of course, that is nothing compared to the pyramids that have been around for 5,000 years, but it's still an amazing achievement. The purpose of the fort back then was to protect the port of Mombasa. Over the years, the fort was fought over 9 times between 1631 to 1875. This was because if you control the fort back then, that would mean you control the entire port of Mombasa, hence controlling the trade, making you powerful. It is an amazing and adventurous place to visit. The fort was filled with cannons to fight off enemies in case of a siege. Long-range cannons were strategically placed on the wall facing the ocean to blow up oncoming enemy ships. Within the Fort Jesus, it's its own small museum that tells its history and the history of the port of Mombasa. It also tells more about the people who used to be there, the Portuguese and the Swahili locals, the weapons used, and the way of life within the fort back then. It is a place you can learn so much history about the Kenyan coast. Back then, Fort Jesus acted both as a military camp and a prison. It was a powerful structure back in the days. Siu Fort. In Siu lies another fort that some Kenyans probably don't even know it exists. It is 25 kilometers northeast of Lamu. Something I find truly amazing about the Siu Fort, it was that it was constructed solely by locals, no foreigners involved. The main materials used for constructions were corals. The fort withstood sieges from the sultans of Zanzibar and Said Said. It is another adventurous place to visit if you liked the Fort Jesus, or if you have been to the Fort Jesus and looking for another place to explore. Being built by locals, it's still amazing that this fort is still standing up to date. Even though it's much smaller than the Fort Jesus, it still served its purpose of warning off enemies and conquering them. Still armed with long-range cannons to fight off enemies from the sea and short-range cannons for those who had reached land. Shimoni Caves. Located in a sleepy fishing village known as Shimoni, it is the site of infamous slave trade in East Africa. Despite the beauty and geographical marvel within the cave, its history is one of despair and sorrow. Such natural cave systems were used as slave holdings in the 1750s. But in 1857, the British Parliament enacted an international ban on slave trade, and in the 1870s, the Parliament managed to convince the Sultan of Zanzibar, Bagash Said, to acknowledge the ban, hence choking slave trafficking for good. When you overlook the history, it is an amazing natural cave system with features that are rare to see, like stalagmites and stalactites. It is a place worth visiting.